There's been a huge twist in the investigation of anti-Semitic attacks across Australia. The Australian Federal Police now investigating the possibility that some of the perpetrators may have been paid by foreign actors to commit hate crimes.
In Camperdown, a 33-year-old man is arrested over an alleged attempt to burn down a synagogue in Sydney's inner west.
A second man is still yet to be arrested, but we expect to make an arrest shortly.
If you are responsible for these criminal activities, you can expect police to be visiting you soon. This is not the end of these arrests.
But some of those responsible might not even be in the country. The Federal Police dropping this bombshell.
We believe criminals for hire may be behind some incidents.
And that those criminals for hire may be recruited and paid by someone overseas.
It would appear that some of these are being perpetrated by people who don't have a particular issue, aren't motivated by an ideology, but are paid actors.
Crime is globalised. Criminals are using anonymising technology, and we know 70% of criminals who target Australia are offshore.
Police suspect some perpetrators were paid in cryptocurrency and received their instructions via encrypted messaging services, making identification all the more difficult.
Why has the Prime Minister never mentioned this before now? When did the Prime Minister find out that there were foreign players?
Those investigations are ongoing. I'm reluctant to say anything that compromises those investigations.
It is important we share this information with the public so they understand how seriously the AFP is taking this investigation.
Since the beginning of the war in late 2023, Australia has experienced a significant rise in anti-Semitic attacks. This month alone has seen the firebombing of a childcare centre, cars covered in anti-Semitic slogans and torched, a synagogue in Sydney's south covered with swastikas, worshippers in Sydney's north threatened.
The Prime Minister has allowed this issue to continue to fester.
So if foreign actors are indeed behind the attacks, who are they? And what is their ultimate objective?
Will Stoltz is the Executive Director of the Melbourne Security Forum. He joins us now. Will, these possible foreign actors, whoever they are, what exactly are they after? Are they just creating chaos?
I think that's part of it. So, for example, foreign actors that have been undertaking these things includes the Russian government and their affiliates overseas who have organised, for example, sabotage in European countries. There was an incident a couple of years ago where anti-Semitic graffiti was being distributed by criminal groups that had been paid by the Russian-affiliated interlocutors. So there is a playbook for some countries to sow discord and discontent by undertaking these sorts of activities, but we haven't seen instances of that sort of behaviour occurring in Australia in recent times.
But why would these foreign actors want to sow this discontent here in Australia?
Well, for example, authoritarian states like Russia want to rip apart Australia's social cohesion, in part due to retaliation over our support for Ukraine, but also to bring down and weaken Australia as a democratic country. Other foreign actors could include countries that are not aligned with Israel and maybe seeking to undermine support from countries like Australia that are supporting the Jewish community. But it could well be a domestic group as well that is coordinating these attacks.
Will, how do they do it? How are they recruiting people?
Well, it's not as simple as going down to your local pub. A lot of this is happening on the dark web, where people who have got a certain persuasion or ideological fixation might be identified, or even criminal groups that are just advertising the fact that they're willing to do pretty much anything for money. And then they'll tend to be brought onto an encrypted chat and begin a discussion that's very difficult for law enforcement and intelligence agencies to be able to intercept.
So let's think about the scenario where it's a foreign government trying to intervene. If that's the kind of thing that's happening here, it would seem to me that it's proof of concept. They've shown that they can do this. And then the end results of that could be limitless. Like you could, if it's done via the internet, you could do all sorts of things to foreign countries. Like, do you see a world where this potentially gets seriously out of control?
Look, the reality is that you're right. The barrier to entry to keep perpetuating these sorts of activities is pretty low. And Russia has had a fair degree of success, for example, in sowing discord and disinformation and interference in the countries it's targeted. But the reality is when it comes to questions of strengthening our social cohesion, how we respond to that and how we strengthen ourselves for that challenge really comes down to how we all behave as Australians. These actors obviously want to take a certain portion of the Australian community and isolate them and make them feel afraid and alone. So it's really up to us as Australians to make a decision about whether we're going to let them feel isolated and alone. And we can change that through our behaviour. So if we look out for our mates, for our fellow Australians, regardless of what creed or background they're from, we can make a more strong and socially coherent country that's resistant to these sorts of activities.
Certainly scary times. William, thanks for chatting.
Thank you.